Thanks very much. No, I got this. I don't need that. Thanks very much. I just realized it is Saturday, isn't it? You guys are amazing. Seriously. So I'm going to move this out of the way, first of all. We're good. So how many of you are confused? How many of you are uncomfortable? How many of you weren't paying attention at all today? So what I'm going to do, just, you're probably sick of me by now. Those of you who came to my sessions, thank you very much. But I'm going to just give you hopefully some starting points and give you some pictures of what classrooms might look like in terms of where all this goes. I want to just honor, however, your conversations today, especially in my breakouts. You were, some very sincere comments and questions that are important ones to be asking. And I think if nothing else, if you can continue to ask those questions, continue to have those conversations, that's crucial. Don't let today just end at the end of the day and not continue to think about what all this stuff means. Like I said in the morning, I don't have the answers, but somebody's got to figure this out. It might as well be you. And, there are lots of people who are trying to think differently about classrooms and schools, but there's lots of room for all of us to get engaged in that conversation. So I hope to see you doing that. I hope you, find your way online. I hope you share your practice. I hope you share your thinking and help all of us try to answer those questions in some better ways. So what I've kind of been thinking about is how do you move this kind of old school concept, this old school system that we have, to more of a bold school system. And I think the schools that are doing it, that are stepping out, are really bold. I mentioned in my breakouts, I don't think I did in the keynote earlier, but where I was yesterday, I was at a school in Denver, in Castleview High School, and you can look this up, and I urge you to do it too, by the way. Castleview Mosaic School, and this is going to be a school within a school, 100 kids, 10 teachers. They're starting in August, and these are 100 kids whose parents have said, I want my child in this program. And the Mosaic program is basically this: 4 years with the same 10 teachers as their advisors and teachers and whatever else. No subjects, no curriculum, no schedules, no grades. None of it. Basically, they are going to have a rich, inquiry-based, kind of authentic student environment where kids pursue the things that they care about, and they then consult with the math teacher when they need to learn math in that context. They consult with the English teacher, the science teacher, the Spanish teacher, whatever else. Now, you look at that and you kind of go, what about the test? What about all those things what about all those expectations? And parents have had some really interesting questions around this. How's my child going to get into college if there aren't any grades? And the fact is, lots of kids get into college without grades. Lots of them. There are narratives. They're going to be writing reports, but they're going to be looking at portfolios. They're going to be looking at a lot of different ways to assess what kids have done. Now, they have to pass the Colorado State test. And that's one benchmark that I don't think they can get around, although they're trying to. They're trying to figure out a way of maybe not having to do that. But my point here is that there are people who are being really bold, and that's really bold, just blowing it up, just saying, this isn't working anymore. We're going to try it very, very differently. And if you want to follow along, you can, because they are blogging about it, they're putting up videos about it, they're capturing a lot of their work and their progress. Again, if you just go to Castleview Mosaic School, you'll find it there. Now, I will tell you that if you're going to be bold, whether it's at a school level, at a district level, or just at a classroom level, you're going to have a vision. And at a system level, everybody's going to have kind of the same vision. I go to a lot of districts where I ask people, what's the vision for teaching and learning in the classroom? And I get a lot of different answers to that. Most places I go, there is no coherent, kind of cohesive vision that says, when you walk into a classroom, this is what's going to be happening in my classroom, or this is also going to be happening in the classroom next door. So I want to share with you a couple of visions that I think are pretty interesting and profound. The first is my favorite vision of all the schools that I've been to. This is Mount Vernon Presbyterian outside of Atlanta, where the headmaster says, our school is a school of inquiry, innovation, and impact. Inquiry, innovation, and impact. And when you just look at those words and you think about it, you know what's going on in classrooms in that school. Kids are asking important questions that they care about. They're looking at learning in some different ways, some innovative ways using technology. But most importantly, the work that they do in those classrooms has an impact in the world. That's their vision. That's what they want happening in that school. And to me, that's a powerful vision. I want my kids in those classrooms. I want them asking questions that they care about. I want them innovating and trying things and maybe failing and finding different ways to go about, meeting success on those things. And I want the work that they do to have an impact in the world. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Here's another one. This is Esme Kapp from I don't expect you to read that, by the way, from Princess Hill School in outside of Melbourne, which is one of the coolest schools I've ever been to. They decided that they were going to add on an addition to their school, and so they made the whole year about design. And the kids designed all of the renovations, all of the furniture, all of the spaces, all of it. And in the process of doing that, they learned a whole bunch of other stuff along the way. But children as participants in the 21st century need to understand themselves as learners, learn to work collaboratively, engage in new technologies, learn how to access new skills and knowledge and develop the skills of thinking creatively, laterally, and critically. Look, it doesn't matter what your vision is, but you got to have one. You got to have one. I was telling a couple of people, I went to a big district in Florida a couple months ago, and I had 50 principals in the room. And I said to them, what's the vision of teaching and learning in this district? And it took almost a minute before one principal raised her hand and she said, all right, it's bell-to-bell instruction and personalized learning. And my heart kind of went, oh, really? Bell-to-bell instruction is the vision of teaching and learning in those districts, in that district. What I'm saying to you is, don't wait for the district to come up with a vision. I don't know what the vision is. Maybe it may be a really coherent, interesting vision, but come up with your own vision. What do you want to have happen in your classroom? And I know that you have to make sure that kids pass the test and they make every parents happy and the state happy. I get that. That's the reality of it. But what does your classroom look like on a daily basis that serves kids as learners in a different world, in a different context? Just what do you want to see happening? What do you want to be doing in your classroom? And really make that vision clear. Right? Keep that vision at the forefront of all the decisions that you make about what happens in that classroom as you go forward. So I'm going to skip that. I have a little bit of a definition of what I think bold schools do, and I'm going to talk about this in the context of bold classrooms. Okay? So as we kind of go through this, I want you to think about spaces that you can enter into this in your classroom, ways that there might be openings, gaps that you might be able to fill by thinking just a little bit differently around what you do in your classroom. And I said this a couple times today in the breakouts, but when you think about change in your classroom, don't think about wholesale change. Please, don't. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, right? But be thinking about what's one thing that you currently do in a very traditional way that you probably think about doing better, and take that one thing and really think about, how can I do it differently? How can I just fundamentally do it differently, give it to kids to figure out on their own around the things they care about. So I think bold schools and bold classrooms are learning-centered, they're inquiry-driven, they do authentic work, they're digital, they have technology, but more importantly than that, they are connected, meaning that that technology connects them to learning opportunities outside the classrooms. They are literate, they're transparent, innovative, and provocative. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, and then at the end, have you do a little exercise, and then we'll finish it up, hopefully, with a little bit of conversation, because I know that it's been a lot of me today and not so much you. So, number one, so bold classrooms are learning and learning-centered, learner-centered. And in bold classrooms and in your classroom, what's one thing that you can let kids self-organize? What's one outcome? What's one learning goal that you can look at it and say, I'm going to let my kids figure out how to get to that goal. I'm not going to organize it. I'm going to let them all get there in a different way. I'm just going to facilitate and support it in some way, okay? And how can they then connect that to their interests or passions? So I talked a little bit today, and by the way, I love this quote by Einstein. It's true. What we need to do as master learners in the classroom is to create conditions for kids to learn. It's not so much about us teaching them something that we think that they need to know, as much as it is giving them the opportunity to learn. So Kathy Cassidy, who I showed earlier today, Cakes, Snakes, and Boxes, Passion-Based Learning and Early Literacy. She teaches a lot of writing and reading through the things that kids care about, whether that's baking or whether it's painting or whatever. She doesn't necessarily stick to a scripted curriculum, or not even a scripted curriculum, but a hard and fast curriculum. She goes kind of where kids want to go. And I think, again, I mentioned, for those of you who are in my workshops, you're going to hear some repeat of the stuff that I said, but in Ontario right now, the really interesting thing is they do all play, all day kindergarten. All play, all day. So teachers come into the classrooms without a plan. And they say to kids, what do you want to learn today? What do you want to do today? And kids say, I want to learn about butterflies, or I want to learn about whales, or I want to learn about this. And it's somewhat chaotic, but basically they let kids answer the questions that they're interested in. They help them do that. And what's happened is now that the first grade teachers have found that half of the first grade curriculum, the kids who are playing all day in kindergarten, have mastered half of the first grade curriculum by the time they get to first grade. So now they're really thinking about, well, maybe we should do all play all day first grade. Because the kids are getting so much out of it, right? So it is this idea that, you can say to kids, especially young kids, well, what do you want to learn? What do you want to think about? Here's a rendition of the American Revolution in Minecraft. And so, if you got to get across certain concepts because someone, whatever that's in the curriculum or because they're in the Common Core or whatever, can you think of that in a different way, however? That you let kids come to that concept in some way that they care about, that they're interested in. So, I don't know, if you haven't looked at Minecraft, if you don't know Minecraft, I would really urge you to go to YouTube and just look up some Minecraft videos of what kids and what people have created. It's amazing, amazing stuff. And there's almost nothing that you cannot have kids represent in Minecraft that's in your curriculum. Lots of different ways to illustrate it and to make it come real for them. So it's about learning and being learner-centered. It's about saying to kids, this is what we need to find out, this is what we need to learn, but how do you want to get there? Pick one outcome and tell students to design their own path. Help students design their own path to that. And you will get resistance, I will tell you right now. You will get kids who will say, no, that's your job. Your job is to teach me this stuff. And some kids are going to go through detox, and they're going to shake, and they're not going to feel good. But they'll be okay. They'll be all right. And it's worth getting them through that so that they can begin to understand what that whole self-organization thing means. Bold classrooms are inquiry-driven. They focus on big questions. So you can do that in terms of just collecting questions that kids are asking and finding out the things that they're really interested in. So, you look at prejudice in math or build me a starship. We should be building lots of starships in classrooms. Trying to figure out fantasy in terms of what, the things that kids can imagine and kids can design on their own. And it's really based a lot on inquiry, on how do you make bacon, you don't have to be, the questions don't have to be totally serious all the time. The only requirement is that kids care about the question. That kids sincerely want to know what the answer to that question is. You can imagine a classroom where you have 20 kids or 25 kids who are all pursuing a question that interests them. How interesting that would be. What a cool place that would be to be a teacher and to just spend some time with those kids. So here we go. So there was a classroom in Indiana, a high school classroom in Indiana a couple of years ago. Actually a few years ago now. Remember when Haiti had all those hurricanes, one after the other? They were just like devastated, one after the other. And this science teacher environmental science teacher in Bern, Indiana, had a friend who was a headmaster at an independent school in Haiti. And one day he was in his classroom in Indiana and he was telling him about these emails exchanges that he was having with this guy. And he said that the biggest problem down in Haiti at that moment was that they could not get clean drinking water to the families that were living there. That all of the water tables had been basically spoiled. People were getting cholera. They were dying. It was really brutal and very, very difficult. And as he was telling this story, this girl raised her hand and she goes, we do all these chem labs and stuff. Why couldn't we figure out a way of getting them clean drinking water? And to his credit, he said, yeah, why can't we? Why can't we do that? So basically, he put aside the curriculum one day a week over the next 6 months. And he basically helped kids lead an inquiry project around how can we get clean drinking water to the kids who are suffering in Haiti. So it's an authentic problem and a question. It's something that the kids really had an interest in trying to figure out because it had a purpose in the world. It wasn't contrived. It wasn't something that they just did because of the classroom. So they basically looked at the question, and he realized, as did the kids, that not all of them are going to have the same interest in that particular project. So he kind of split it up and he said, Okay, so who wants to do the research? Who wants to really get with the engineers and the, and the environmentalists and figure out what we need to do? And there were a whole bunch of kids that said they want to do that. And then they said, well, who wants to fabricate this thing once we come up with what it is? Because they were going to make something, actually. They were going to create a purifier. And so they had a whole bunch of kids raise their hand for that. And then there were a whole bunch of, another segment of kids who said, well, look, if we're going to do this for kids in Haiti, let's raise awareness. Let's raise awareness here about water issues and stuff like that. So there was a whole kind of marketing team, and you can see the pictures here of kids who are collecting money, they're raising awareness. Over the course of the year and a half, actually, it extended out because they got hit with another hurricane. The whole school started adopting this Haiti project, where kids in kindergarten were cooking Haitian food, and they were singing Haitian songs. And the whole thing kind of took on a life of its own. But here's the cool thing. Teachers and students traveled to Haiti with these devices and installed 5 of them, clean water for 8,000 people, the things that they had created in their classrooms and had funded through their outreach so they could bring them down there and put them into place. And they actually were only able to put 4 of them into place. Teachers had to go on their own to a part of the village that was especially hard hit by cholera. They didn't want the kids to be exposed to that, but the teachers were okay, I guess. So, so the teachers went up and installed that one. But now, all of a sudden, you had 8,000 kids in Haiti who, because of the systems that these kids built in Bern, Indiana, based on the question of one girl who just said, why can't we do that? And the willingness of a teacher to say, why can't we do that? Oh, by the way, it met all the standards, and in Indiana, the standards are pretty high. It was interdisciplinary, technology-rich, innovative thinking, and they passed the test. They passed the test. So, kids doing real work in the world that they care about is, I think, the best path to passing a test anywhere. You may have to fill in some of the blanks here and there, but pretty much that's what it looks like. So it's not delivery, it's discovery. It's ask a big question. Let your kids ask even one question. They support authentic work, right? It's real work for real audiences, real purposes. When my kids were in 4th and 6th grade, we had this thing, actually even all throughout elementary school, we had this thing called the Friday folder. Anyone know the Friday folder? You know this? So my kids kept coming home with this Friday folder thing, and it had every piece of paper that they were doing in school. They had all the quizzes, the tests, the handouts, the whatever else. And Monday morning, we were signing this paper, because we had to sign it, saying they got an A-, sign it. And the bus would screech to a halt, paper would be all over the place, kids would be screaming. It was this nightmare. So we saved every piece of paper that came home in the Friday folder when they were, I think it was 3rd and 5th grade. And we just put it in a stack in the bedroom, and over the course of the year, it grew to 2.5, almost 3 feet tall of paper that they brought home in the Friday folder. Now, you know what I'm going to say, right? My kids never once looked at any of that paper that they accumulated in their Friday folder. They had absolutely zero investment in that work. That was the doing school pile. That was it. That was the doing school pile, the stuff that they kept bringing home and whatever else. Kids can do real work for real audiences. Kids can write books and publish them on Kindle. Kids can go out and do research in the community and share that research in lots of different ways, whether it's by video or by presentation or by performance or whatever else. The abundance of technology that we have available to us and the access that we have to that to be really transparent about the work that we do gives you opportunities for kids to do amazing stuff. And not amazing like cure cancer amazing. I mean amazing like produce something of quality that has a value to people outside of your classroom. Why shouldn't we do that? Why couldn't you take one thing that your kids are currently doing and make it work outside of your classroom for a real audience, where people learn from it or value it or really find it useful? So it is about letting kids create work that lives in the world, not in the classroom. If you're just passing paper back and forth, whether that paper is digital or analog, you're not looking at the opportunities that this moment provides right now in terms of kids doing meaningful, authentic work that has a purpose in the world. So number 4, bold classrooms are digital. And I don't think that this is an option. My friend Cheryl Nussbaum Beach has a great saying. She says, most of us in this room, we're the last generation that had a choice about technology. My kids don't have a choice. I don't think the kids in your classrooms have a choice. They are going to be using technology in just about every part of their lives, whether they're professional lives, personal lives, whatever else. They do not have a choice. And I think that we have to work as hard as we can to make sure that we provide a device or a tool to every child. Now, I know this is hard. I also understand that there are some conversations in this state of Nevada. Sorry, I got it wrong this morning. A couple people pointed that out. Nevada. I just have to remember my Chicago roots in order to get that pronunciation right. But that there's some people in Nevada right now who are talking about a one-to-one implementation throughout the state, which would be a very interesting development, wouldn't it? I mean, let's hope that if they do it better than LA Unified did, the Los Angeles School District did with their one-to-one rollout. But still. So it is about students and teachers having access and fluency to technology. And here's my friend Chris Lehman. If you ever get to Philadelphia and you want to see what I think is the best example of a bold school in the country, it is Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia. And Chris is the principal. I wish I could clone him. I can't, obviously. But he has built a place that I absolutely want to send my kids to. It's the type of school that kids don't want to leave. They don't want to leave that school. And it is about science more than anything else, but technology should be like oxygen, ubiquitous, necessary, and invisible. With all due respect to the people in the room who are in the technology department, we shouldn't need a technology department. We never had a pencil department, right? We never had, it's, technology and digital technology has to become simply a part of what we are and what we do. We can't look at it like it's something separate, because our kids are not going to be able to be without it. Now, the good news is that the costs are coming down. I'm not a big tablet fan, but look, if it's a tablet or nothing, I'm a tablet fan, right? I'm all about getting kids access. But here's the deal. You cannot give kids a device that has access on it and then tell them they can't use the access. And that's what a lot of schools do. They spend lots of money on lots of stuff, and they hand it out, but then they say, oh yeah, but we're blocking that, and we're filtering that, and we're not going to let you do that. And so that's a huge problem. But look, the budget issue is not going to be an issue for too much longer. In fact, it doesn't need to be an issue for most schools with a little bit of creative thinking around, how you can move some money into this place. Leanne, is that from Carson City? $250 for a robust laptop for every child in that district, or what is it, 2 through 12, 3 through 12? But $250 as a price point, that's not a bad price point, and that's going to come down more and more. We have to begin to think about what is our classroom going to look like when every child has access. That doesn't mean that they're on 24/7, but it does mean what do we do when every child has a computer? So the really interesting thing that Carson City is doing that most places don't is that their teachers got the devices at least a year and sometimes 2 years in advance. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, well 6 months is better than handing out the devices to kids and teachers at the same time, which is what happens at a lot of schools and a lot of districts. When we did our one-to-one implementation, about 10 years ago, our teachers had them for 2 years before any kid got one. And by the time the kids started getting them, our teachers were ready to go. They were comfortable. They had done a lot of planning. We did a lot of PD. So absolutely make sure that we're digital. But it is then about that connection piece. You can't give kids access on a device and then say, oh, by the way, you can't connect. Now, the connection piece is that tough part. And if you were I mentioned this before in the earlier keynote this morning, and I also mentioned it in the literacy thing, in the literacy breakouts, but this network piece is just crucial for us to understand. And there is a literacy that goes along with it, and I know that this is difficult to see, but it is this idea that with access, we move from the outside of this circle where we're kind of unaware of one another. If there are people in this room right now who if I put your full name into a Google search and nothing comes up, if I put your full name right now into a search engine and nothing comes up that you've done or shared, I can't learn with you. We can't connect. We can't learn with one another, right? So it is this idea that at the outside of this circle, we are unaware of one another because basically we can't find each other. But we move into the middle of the circle by sharing, by putting ourselves out there, by engaging in comments, by having conversations with one another around the things that we care about, by maybe collaborating, by doing things and connecting our classrooms in some pretty interesting ways. And I just want you to know that it's in that green and yellow part that most of the connected learning happens. And you can't read it, I know, but what's in that green and yellow part is basically sharing and and commenting and asking questions of one another. The red part down there, the middle of that bullseye, is like when you and I, we're all of a sudden, we're emailing one another on a regular basis. We're Skyping one another because we're working on a project with our classrooms and we need to be talking like every single day. You know what I mean? That's really intensive collaboration that happens in the middle there. But that green and yellow piece is a crucial part of your participation online because it makes you findable. And it makes your kids findable. And I really believe that every child that graduates from this district should be Googled well on graduation day, under their full names. Every single one of them. You should be sending every single child out of this district with an impressive, positive digital footprint under their full names. So that when people go search for them, which by the way, you know this, right? You know that your kids are going to be searched for over and over and over again in their lives. My kids are going to be searched for by potential employers, by perhaps college admissions officers, by potential mates. Thank God I'm not dating right now, right? Can you imagine that? What was your name again? Excuse me for a second, would you? You're over here trying to find out who they are. That's the world. You may not like it, but the students in your classrooms will be Googled over and over and over and over again. And I tell you this right now. If they are Googled and nothing comes up, at some point people are going to say, well, what's up with that? Where's their evidence of participation? Why is there no evidence of you doing anything in the world? Why is there no evidence of you creating, of connecting, of any of those things? I think it will be a detriment to kids who are Googled, who don't have any reputation online. I would guess that this district Googles every teacher candidate at this point. And I would guess that that isn't just about making sure that there's nothing bad out there. I would hope that they're being Googled so that they can see, well, have they been creating? Have they been connecting? Have they been doing interesting stuff in their classroom? Do they understand what it means to be transparent? Are they fluent with technology? All those types of things. So it is this idea that we have to help kids become networked. Connected learning is realized when a young person is able to pursue a personal interest or passion with the support of friends and caring adults, and is in turn able to link this learning and interest to academic achievement, career success, or civic engagement. So, it's not just learning how to use Minecraft. It's learning how to use Minecraft and then doing something good in the world with Minecraft. Teaching other people how to use Minecraft, or setting up a simulation in Minecraft that has something to do with math class or history class or whatever else. Your classroom should have thin walls. I think that's the metaphor that works. That you're getting outside of your physical space classroom all the time. That's what it means to be connected. You're bringing people in, you're Skyping people in, kids are connecting with other people, they're Skyping, whatever, and commenting on each other's blogs, working in wikis, Google Docs, always somebody outside of the walls that is participating inside. So if you came to my literacy sessions today, you know that the literacy definition that I like to use is the National Council of Teachers of English. And I'm hoping you guys can see these, and I'm not going to go through all these. But this is a very, I think, challenging definition of literacy. I wonder how many of you feel like you can manage, analyze, synthesize multiple streams of simultaneous information. I wonder how many of you can create, critique, analyze multimedia, or fully understand the ethical issues that go along with living in a world of abundance. I'll share this quote again from Lawrence Lessig, one of my favorite authors, who says, in this world, 90% of our kids are criminals because they are downloading music and texts and pictures and whatever else illegally because there's a copyright problem with that. They don't understand the ethical implications of that, and that is part of literacy now. He also says, we're either going to incarcerate 90% of our kids or we're going to have an interesting conversation around copyright. And I think it's going to be the latter. We don't want to throw all our kids in jail, obviously. So literacy is changing, and you have to be literate. You have to be literate in order to help your kids become literate. It's not enough to just simply know how to read and write and do basic numeracy and things like that. That's important still, but it's not enough now. And so those contexts for literacy have changed. And it is about, are you literate as well? And I'll just show you this really fast because I think that this is an interesting example. And again, the people who came to my breakouts have seen this. But there is some audio with this, but I'm not going to worry about it. This is a web page that comes up on the New York Times when you click on this link, hopefully. We'll see if it comes up. I don't know if you can hear it, but the picture's not coming up. Well, I'm not going to wait for it. Basically what it is it's a, there we go. From that perspective, what we announced. I don't know what that was, but anyway. It is this HTML5 kind of web page now where you can embed video and audio and pictures and have all sorts of scrolling stuff and do really interesting things. If you just if you just Google Shark and Minnow New York Times, you'll find it. But this is what reading and writing looks like right now. It is multimedia, and it is a lot different from the kind of traditional literacies we've been talking about. So make literacy a part of your annual learning plans and evaluations as well. Find some places in that 6 bullet point list that you need to work on and really move toward that. Well, classrooms are transparent. They're sharing their best practices. How many of you right now could I Google your names and find the best practices of your classroom? Brian, you don't count. So, a couple people, that's it. Now, in a room of 300 or 250 people, 2 people raise their hands. Now, again, I'm not giving you guys grief. I'm really not. But I am hoping that that raises a question. How is it that you can share your best practices to help me become a better teacher or to help someone else become a better teacher? Because transparency is what kind of fuels learning right now. If you're not playing, if you're not sharing, I can't learn from you. And likewise, you can't learn from the people who aren't sharing as well. So this idea of transparency and putting the work out there, whether it's kids' work or whatever else, I mean, Cassidy, that first grade teacher again, every one of her first graders has his or her own blog that is open to the world. Anybody can read it, anybody can comment on it. Now, Kathy mediates that. She's not, letting her kids just kind of work in there unattended. But the point is, she wants her kids to understand that they're in a transparent world. Shelley Wright is a teacher who moved from a very traditional old classroom to an inquiry-based bold classroom over the last 2-3 years. Her blog was the most profound learning journey I have ever read in my life. It was on a daily basis, just this amazing story of all the things that changed, all the ways that she had to kind of re-envision her role in the classroom. The sadness that came from having to give up a lot of her traditional thinking about what her role was. Profound stuff. And if she hadn't have shared that, I'm not kidding, there would be thousands of teachers who wouldn't have moved their practice to a different place right now because they read Shelley's blog on a daily basis. And that the center of that circle, we were sharing wins with her on a regular basis, sharing links to her blog posts, talking about her, interviewing her, really good stuff. And she was not the most transparent person to begin with. It wasn't something that it was real easy for her to do, but she just felt like if she was going to go on this journey that she wanted to take other people with her. And that's what I'm talking about. So can you create public online spaces that showcase your teaching and your students' work? Can you put some of their work out there so that other people, can you reflect on it so that other people can see it and learn from it as they think about their own classrooms? They're innovative. All learners are encouraged to poke the box. My favorite superintendent I'm going to show here in a second is my old superintendent, actually, Lisa Brady, who on the first day of school would come in and say, I want your classrooms to be places of experimentation and innovation, and I want you to fail, but don't fail. I trust you not to fail catastrophically, right? I trust you not to put kids in harm's way, but I also expect you to try different things, understanding full well that they're not always going to work. And if parents or whatever else, get upset about that, you just send them to me, and I'll help them understand why we are innovating, why we are trying different things, why we have to be places of innovation. One of the most innovative schools in the country right now is Scarsdale, which, if you're not familiar with Scarsdale in New York, this is a very high-performing district. All of their kids go to great schools. There is no reason for this school to change anything about what they do. They are, in fact, the highest-paid teaching district in the world. Their top of their teacher salary guide is upwards of $130,000. Now, they have no reason to change, none. But yet, they are starting, and they have started, a center of innovation. And you can go online and you can download this PDF, and I would urge you to do it. It goes through, it's about a 50-page PDF where they talk about all the ways that they're rethinking this traditional, highly successful system that doesn't need to change. And they are doing things like Reggio Emilia, I don't know, in maker spaces. Someone today was saying, there's some, I think in this school, and probably in your schools, wherever you're from, probably have some spaces that you could turn into maker spaces where you could create opportunities for kids to use 3D printers and use CAD programs and Scratch and all that kind of stuff. Reggio Emilia, if you're not familiar with Reggio Emilia, is powerful play-based learning type of environment that comes from Italy. Game-based learning, global learning, innovation spaces. So my point is that there's room to innovate always. It's just a matter of the will to do it and the culture that says, we expect you to innovate. As a parent, I know I'm an outlier, but as a parent, I expect my kids' teachers to innovate. I expect my kids' teachers to try different things. I don't want my kids' to be experiencing the same things in their classrooms that the kids who had that teacher 10 years ago experienced. And yet all too often, that's pretty much the case, unfortunately. So it is about innovating and being willing to innovate. And you can get this actually as an ebook on iTunes, if you like, as well, the Scarsdale Center for Innovation. It is about maker education stuff. And it is about encouraging and celebrating creative practice and kind of getting out of our own comfort zones around that. Okay, and then finally, and this is a hard one, but if you're doing things that are different in your classroom, so let me step back a little bit. If you see the world differently, and you think that there's an opportunity to rethink what you're doing in your classroom, and you want to think about it differently, not better, you want to do it really differently, I think then part of being a bold classroom is to be advocating for that type of change at a larger level. So it's not simply about advocating for change in your space, but it is advocating for change in your department, in your school, in your district, in your state, in your nation, if you will. You know, there are lots of people who are talking about reform in lots of different ways, and I find it interesting the extent to which, in many cases, educators are silent in terms of articulating a different vision for what we want schools to be like. And again, no disrespect to you guys. I'm not in any way suggesting that you're not doing a great job with kids and that you don't care for kids and that you don't want what's best for kids. I know every one of you does. But if you're going to do things differently, I think it's almost incumbent upon us now to make sure other people see that and to make sure other people understand why we're doing that. That we're looking at the world differently. That the requirements of being successful in the world for the kids in our classrooms are now different. And we can't just kind of do different in isolation. So it is about Lisa, and I know this isn't a great graphic, but blogging on a regular basis about putting her parents together. She's the superintendent of a district in New York State now, but getting parents together to read Tony Wagner's The Global Achievement Gap, which is a great contextual book on how different the world looks. And her parents became one of the first parent groups in New York State to advocate against the standardized tests that they were rolling out. And I don't know if you've heard what's happening in New York State, but there is a pretty significant movement right now that's pushing pretty hard against some of the stuff that's coming down from Albany and coming down from DC as well. And she's willing to advocate for that. She's willing to be provocative about that. She's willing to say to people, you know, we have to think about it differently. Here's what it looks like, and here's why, and let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get together and kind of try to figure out what the best path through this is for our kids. So it is about regularly sharing news about reform and learning with parents and community members. We had a couple conversations about this, you know, or I had a couple conversations about this with folks today, and definitely had some conversations yesterday in Denver too, that, you know, parents need to be educated as well. Parents need to see the types of things that are happening in the world. They need to understand the changes at some level. Because if parents don't understand that, they're not going to support your efforts to do things differently. They're going to hold on to their nostalgia, you know, and they're going to hold on to that picture of what schools should be and what schools should look like. So the more that we can kind of provoke that conversation, the better. So, you know, I don't expect any of you to all of a sudden turn around and do all those things, right? And there are some of these things on this list that you can't do. You can't make your classrooms totally digital and connected in many cases. I understand that. But let me just make this point. Those first three things on there, that learner-centered, authentic, inquiry-based learning, that doesn't require technology at all. You know that, right? That doesn't require an ounce of technology at all for you to do learner-centered work that kids care about through questions that they find interesting that show themselves or the answers to those things in in artifacts that live in the real world. You don't need technology for that. Be nice if you had it, but that's something you can do right away. You don't need to wait for the stuff. If you get the stuff, great. That amplifies it. Technology amplifies what we can do in terms of really good learning. And by the way, none of this is new. This is Dewey. This is Papert. This is all the people, Montessori. It's all the people who throughout the years have been defining learning as experience, as doing things, not just receiving things. So none of this is new, but the problem is that we've lost it in a lot of ways, and I'm just suggesting that we need to find ways to bring it back as much as we possibly can. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, I'm going to ask you to take like 3 or 4 minutes, and I seriously want you to write this down, the answer to this question. And you can type it, you can put it on your Google Doc or whatever you like. And then when you're done, I'm going to give you like 3 or 4 minutes. When you're done, I'm going to ask you just to turn and talk to somebody, and then I'm also going to come out and I'm going to see if I can get some people to share out. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a goal for the next 5 days, something you're going to do in the next 5 days to move your practice to a different place. Whether it's your personal practice, your classroom practice, I would probably urge you to focus on your personal practice. But what's one thing that you can do in the next 5 days that can move your practice in some way to a different place? And then the second one is, you can guess, what's something you think you can do in the next 5 weeks? And then what's one thing you think you can do in the next 5 months in order to more deeply understand these kinds of changes and shifts and potentials and challenges that we have because of this kind of modern learning world that we have. So what can you do in 5 days? What's one thing you can do in 5 weeks? What's one thing you think you can do in 5 months? So I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes. Just write those things down. Think about it and write those things down. I almost hate to stop you from talking, but we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. And what I'm hoping is that we can get a few people just to share out some stuff that they're going to try to do. So I got a microphone. I can play Monty Hall, for those of you who are old enough to know what that means. And I'd love if we could get just 2 or 3 people talking about what are you going to do the next 5 days? And then the next 5 weeks, and then the next 5 months. So can I get a volunteer 5 days from now? Who's going to be brave? Here we go.
What I'd like to do is I want to provoke conversations with my students to have them tell me how they see technology in their lives, not only now, but in in high school and in college, that's beyond playing games or beyond just a Google website. I want them to think about the value of technology for them.
Cool, great. How about someone else? 5 days. What are you going to do in the next 5 days? Oh, we got the whole row here. There you go. You can just pass it on down. Go ahead.
This one's easy. I'm going to sign up for Twitter.
All right, there we go. How many of you are going to sign up for Twitter in the next 5 days? See that? Look at, there's going to be all sorts of people. And if you're going to sign up for Twitter, please remember to use the hashtag #WCSD, because just really fast Twitter tutorial here. But you see how this shows up as a link? I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is the hashtag WCSD21Cafe. It shows up as a link. If you tweet something with that hashtag, when it shows up on your Twitter stream, just click on that hashtag and you'll see everybody else from this district who's used that hashtag. So you can find one another really easily and start following and connecting and doing all that kind of good stuff. Okay.
I'm getting my master's degree
in 5
online.
days? That's great.
No,
that's really good.
So I've decided that the next opportunity I get to do something in technology, like make a podcast versus make a PowerPoint versus write a paper. I will write a paper. I have that handled. So I'm going to make a podcast or do something I've never done before and figure it out.
In the next 5 days?
Yes, I actually have that opportunity now.
All right, good. Very good. One more. 5 days?
In the next 5 days, I want to add 10 new contacts, sort of heroes in education. I'm going to search them out and let them critique some of the work that I've done.
Awesome.
And hopefully connect with some great new minds.
Awesome. Great. All right, 5 weeks. Who's got something they're going to do in the next 5 weeks? Come on, don't be shy. Thank you very much.
Well, after today, I have a classroom that's full of iPads and laptops, but coming from a traditional school, I'm going to make the leap. So starting next a week and a half, student-centered. I'm the facilitator. They're going to use that stuff.
Awesome. Using the technology. How about someone else? Yep. I'm going to be out of breath in this rare air up here, you know. It's like,
I started a little now, but I'm going to see if my students and I can stop being blocked on our computers so we have the links that we can enter.
5-week goal to fight the filter. Yes.
So my goal for the next 5 weeks is to use the iPad to plan and publish a video with my first grade class about content.
About what?
Content.
About content. There we go. Okay. One more? 5 weeks? These are great. Yep. Oh, you're really going to make me come all the way up there to the corner to do this, right? All right. I'll come get you. Don't worry.
So I will register my class in Khan Academy and get at least 80% of them watching videos and earning badges.
All right. There we go. All right. 5 months. Who's got the big plan? Yep.
I teach out in Gerlach, which is about 100 miles away, and so I think it's really important for my students to have experiences in the rest of the world that's not just Burning Man or a small desert town. So about 2 days per month, we go out and do something in the greater Nevada area, and I want to start them blogging about the experience that they had, because we were doing a lot of awesome stuff, and then we just kind of go back to the classroom and do our thing. So I want to give them a chance to write about it.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Yep.
So we've been working on flipping our classroom in the classroom because not all of our kids can watch videos at home, and we just want to add a student choice component to that. So instead of just doing what we're always doing and saying, oh great, these videos are great, so all of our kids are going to watch the video, or today you're all going to watch me teach, or today you're all going to do IXL, we're going to try and put it all together into a pretty cool student choice menu, I guess.
Awesome. One more? I'll come up here to the front corner and you can tell us what you had, and then I'll finish up.
I'm going to try and post videos of things that my kids did in the past, like they wrote a play one time, Romeo and Juliet, Jerry Springer style, and I want to get those posted so that my kids now could have a choice and see.
Romeo and Juliet, Jerry Springer style. That I would love to see. All right. Well, listen. Look, try to take one of those ideas and make it happen. You know, it doesn't have to. You don't have to change everything. Just change one small thing. But here's the other thing, and this is, partially on you and some of the leaders in this district too, and that is, you got to figure out a way when you begin to innovate in classrooms how to make that transparent to one another, right? Because it is about sending it out there and putting it out there for the world to kind of look at too, but I'll tell you, one of the most powerful things we did on a regular basis to get our teachers to understand what it looked like is every staff meeting we had teachers and kids presenting what they were doing in the classroom. And we had people asking questions, and it was powerful. I mean, we did a lot of that stuff that you do in staff meetings, that you normally do, tick through all the checklists and everything. We just did that on digital. We sent it out as an email and said, you got to read this and figure it out. But when you come to the staff meeting, we're going to show you what's happening down in this chemistry classroom over here, or what's happening over in this English classroom. And we're going to have kids, and we want you to interact with them. It's imperative that you see it, that you can recognize it, and that you know what it looks like. It will help all of you in that work. I sincerely want to thank you for having me today. I hope that this was a good spend of your time. And you know where to find me. If you have other questions, if you are looking for resources, if there's any way that I can help you, connect you to someone, I'd be more than happy to do that. Sincere best wishes on your work. It's important work that you're doing. Your kids absolutely need you to help them right now. And it's incumbent upon all of us, I think, to begin to understand this really interesting world that we're all in the midst of right now. And it's a fun place to be. So sincere best wishes in your work. Thank you very much today. Appreciate it.